or seventh theory relating to origin of state is the evolutionary theory, and this evolutionary theory is mostly accepted by all the philosophers, political scientists, and even jurists. This evolutionary theory describes those facts or factors which were responsible in evolution of the institution of state. And this was better explained by Professor Bigot in his Physics and Politics, also by Herbert Spencer in his Principles of Sociology, where they stressed on societal evolution and distinct stages of evolution, and the various forces and factors which are responsible for the evolution and development of state. So that these factors, as explained by Professor Bigot in his Physics and Politics, also Professor Herbert Spencer's, are kinship, religion, economic activities, force, and lastly political consciousness. So first we will go to kinship. And regarding kinship, what is kinship? Now, it is a kind of blood relationship, and it refers to one common ancestor and the dominance of a patriarch or the eldest male member of the family. And regarding that, Professor McIver expressed that kinship creates society, and society at length creates state. So this is how kinship as a factor is responsible for the evolution of state. The second factor is of religion. So what are the different forms of religion or religious practices among the primitive people? So these are animism, worship of forces of nature, superstitious belief, worship of deceased ancestors, then power of magic, the rainmaker, the exorcist, the medicine man, then lastly the priestly class. So this is how from primitive society the practice of religion in form of animism and worship of forces of nature, the role of medicine man, the rainmaker, the exorcist, etc., how it led to the development of a priestly class, and that priestly class ultimately upheld the divine right of kings. So this is how religion was a major factor in evolution of state. The third factor is the economic activities, and those economic activities among the primitive people. At the beginning of the civilization, mostly the primitive people were functioning as hunting man or huntsman. Gradually, they became the horseman. So, by hunting animal, gradually they became horsemen. And that horseman here means they started protecting and keeping animals. And from horsemen they gradually turn into agricultural man. And that agricultural man, it gave rise to the very concept or idea of private property. And those very idea of the concept of private property, it gave rise to exchange of commodities and the social classes. So gradually, due to the rise of social classes, there also certain occupational diversification which became the major factor in evolution of state. The next one is, next important factor is force. So how force became a factor in evolution of state. So since the beginning there was struggle and warfare among different communities, tribes, families and clans. And in those continuous struggle and warfare among the tribes, those who succeed in those warfare or struggle, they became the dominant class or dominant clan or caste to rule over the society. So the same thing was also explained by Karl Marx in his economic interpretation of history, which is otherwise called historical materialism, where he clearly mentioned about the dominant class or about the class conflict, class struggle, etc. So, in this way, force is considered as one of the major factors in evolution of state. And lastly, political consciousness is another important factor in evolution of state. So, in gradual evolution from kinship, religion, economic activities and force, the society transferred into some civilized manner. So, they made customary laws, and those customary laws made by the society will rule over those members of the society. And gradually these customary laws create social coordination, and this social coordination also in other way established social control. So due to these customary laws, social coordination and social control, the very concept of political consciousness become a factor in evolution of state. So ultimately the primitive society in due course became transferred into a civil society or a political society. And this is how the different theorists, experts and exponents from Begot, Spencer, etc., like Herbert Spencer, Henry Mann, Karl Marx, established that state is evolved, neither it is made or it is evolved in due process.